afternoon, Sara, and thank you for your time on the SABC News Desk. Racial tensions persisting as at a school that looks to be using an archaic language policy to justify its exclusionary behavior. What do you make of it, and how do we manage those who still look to be resisting values of non-racialism and inclusivity?
What happens in these situations is that the South African Schools Act allows for the existence of government Afrikaans language schools, and there is pressure because of the huge number of children coming into the province each year to find places for children, and not enough schools can be built or are being built to accommodate children. The problem here is that the South African Schools Act at this stage does allow the existence of Afrikaans medium schools, and if the school is full, which Overvaal says it was, or it is rather, then they are full. And the problem with the court case is it appears that the judge came down very heavily on the Department of Education over the manner in which they dealt with this issue, issues of threats of dismissal of principals, etc., etc. So it's a tricky one because you have to make provision for children who in a new language medium. That means you have to possibly appoint new teachers. You may have to create more class space. None of this is quick. None of this is easy. And more than anything is who's going to pay for it.
All right. We are seeing the Department of Education saying that they don't have a problem with single medium schools. In fact, they came to the party, and they, in the sense that they said they would send furniture, they procured the furniture, they got the English teachers, but the school raised the issue of limitations in terms of space and capacity only when it came to admitting the 55 English-speaking students, and not when they had to admit more Afrikaans-speaking students. So I think that's where the contestation is. And it also goes back to the question of how we best handle social cohesion and diversity management at school level, because whether we want to admit it or not, there is still resistance at that level.
The issue in getting the change is actually managing it in a constructive and consultative way, and I think this is where the department has often come along either somewhat aggressively or a bit late to get that change. There's no doubt, I agree with you, that if you can find accommodation at that level, that's the age at which children learn to live with other children.
Yes, because it is our understanding, it's my understanding that the school has 621 learners, 17 classrooms, so it does have capacity for 800 learners. The gates can be open.
Well, I can't comment directly on that because I know from my experience in government schools on governing bodies that one of the problems is the classrooms aren't always the same size, and so the amount of children they can accommodate will vary, particularly at high school level, because you're doing very different subjects. And so although the classroom number may be there, the actual size or design of the classrooms does not accommodate more children. To be honest, I can't tell you exactly without knowing the details of the specific issue.
Sara, over the past 2 decades, we've had a host of school desegregation policies come into play, and this has helped us achieve social cohesion at our schools at some level. But challenges do remain. If we look at the hair and language policy protests that have manifested over the past 2 years or so, it just looks like some of our schools are not responding to the dynamics, to the demographic changes and the needs of the communities they exist in. So the policies haven't changed and haven't kept up. Now, the Minister of Basic Education has often said this is more a policy issue than a racial one. Does she have a point?
I think she does have a point in the sense that I think there's a certain amount of policy desperation, confusion, because in most of the provinces, language, colours are not a problem. It's when you get into the provinces which are very racially diverse and people live spatially in areas as apartheid originally planned it, it becomes much more difficult. And it can be done. I mean, I have children who went to schools that were exactly that, government schools. But obviously, if you're in an environment like Vereeniging, you're going to hit up against the demands of a grouping like the EFF, against sometimes conservative, possibly aggressive Afrikaans parents, and then all you have is trouble. It is something that I think the national department has to become more involved in with the provincial department, because Gauteng is somewhat different because of the influx, the constant influx of children into the school, into the province every year.
Sarah, we are running out of time. I just want to quickly broaden this and get your thoughts. The National Development Plan sets 2030 as a deadline for nation building and social cohesion. And it states by then that all of us as South Africans will be more conscious of the things we have in common than our differences. Will we ever reach a point where apartheid is no longer a part of our living memory? And to what extent will that aid in social cohesion? And is it all achievable in about 12 years now? I hope so. Yeah. I really do.
That would be, you know, so much depends on leadership.
Yes.
To be honest, I think with the presidency of Jacob Zuma, a lot of emphasis was put on race. And given our past, you actually have to work very much harder at cohesion. And I don't think it'll ever go. But that's not peculiar to South Africa.
Sara Gon, a policy fellow at the Institute of Race Relations, joining us on the SABC News Desk this afternoon. Time to take a short break. I'll be back with more news after this.
Phones, cloud systems and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join me, Spumelele Zondi, on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
Hello again, here's your sport. South Africa are through to the ICC Under-19 World Cup quarter-finals thanks to a brilliant performance from wicket-keeper Wandile Makwetu. The South Africans beat the Windies by 76 runs in New Zealand, with Makwetu unbeaten in the end on 99 runs.
South Africa batted first and were in trouble on 112 for 5 in the 21st over. One of the reasons was the controversial dismissal of Jivishan Pillay. He picked up the ball after playing a shot which was ruled obstructing the field. It was against the laws of cricket, but Windies captain Emmanuel Stewart said after the match he regretted his team's appeal and it was not in the spirit of the game. Makwetu then steadied the ship for his team. He made sure that South Africa completed all 50 overs and attacked towards the end. Makwetu was involved in several key partnerships and South Africa scored 118 runs in the final 10 overs. They finished on 282 for 8. The wicketkeeper also played his part in the Windies innings, taking 3 catches. Alec Athanase was the best batsman for the Windies, scoring 76 runs. But when Herman Rolfs took his wicket, the game was effectively over. The Windies were bowled out for 206 and Rolfs took 4 wickets while conceding just 33 runs in 10 overs. Makwetu's innings, however, was deemed the most influential.
The biggest thing